play's going to be at home. And Prime wins the game. There we go, boys. There we go. Holy cow. Holy cow. On Allie's hit right there, a single base hit wins the game.
Hey everybody, this is Todd with Perfect Game of the Upstate SEC, and I'm here in this beautiful facility, the Vault, here in South Carolina, in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I am here with Jeff Moon. He is the man that runs the 5G Prime, and we're going to have a conversation about baseball and a whole bunch of things, and this is the first organizational video that we've done. Man, Jeff, I appreciate you having us here, and tell us about the 5G story.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, Todd, and once I want to appreciate everything that you guys do with Perfect Game, and how All League and you and Dominic and Chris. I feel like I talk to you guys like on a daily basis or whatever. But
yeah,
but normally when you hear from Dominic, it's not really the good stuff. So
yeah, we got a little good cop, bad cop going on there.
Yeah,
if you haven't
right.
noticed, no, I'm just kidding.
No, Dominic's cool. But yeah, no. So 5G actually originated in this building, believe it or not. So I mean, it's a good little story. So let me tell you how it started. I was giving lessons at Upward facility in Spartanburg, and a buddy of mine that I went to high school with, used to hang out with, he brought his daughter in there because they were on a rec team, and he saw me giving lessons, and he was like, "Hey Jeff, I think I'm going to create like a facility. Would you like to do lessons in that facility?" And I was like, "Well, I got a good thing going on here, but I'll think about it and talk to you." Well, later on, something happened with Upward where maybe they got bought out or something, and they come to me and they say, "Well, we can't really give lessons here anymore," and it was perfect timing. So I called my buddy and I said, "Hey, are you still putting together that facility?" And he was like, "Yeah, we're about to open right now. Perfect timing. You can do lessons here and everything." And so I started giving lessons here, and the name of the place was 5G Sports. So while I was giving lessons and everything, I was still coaching, a team with the organization, and he could see where I would come in upset a little bit because there was some like money situations going on, and I really didn't like what was going on. And he was like, "Man, I see you're upset about something. Tell me what it is." And I told him, and he said, "Well, what about you doing teams for 5G? Like be a 5G team. What do you think about that?" And I was like, "Sure, but you got to tell me what 5G means because I've never really asked you."
Yeah, I'm about to find out right now.
Yeah, and I thought it was like the wireless service, 5G service and all of that. And he was like, "No," he said. "So I got 5 daughters, so 5G is 5 girls." And I was like, "Oh, it makes sense now."
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Well, I was always a Deion Sanders fan, like prime time, like I love Deion Sanders." And he said, "So if you wanted to do it, you could be 5G Prime, 5G Prime Time, or whatever."
Right.
And I was like, "Well, I like 5G Prime. We'll do that." And sure enough, we started it. And right when we started, man, we hit the ground running. Like the team I had, we were dominant. We won like 10 tournaments in a row and all this stuff. And so our name was getting out there. But one of the worst parts about that is I will never forget. We were playing at Lakeside. We were actually in the championship game at Lakeside, and my phone rang, and I didn't answer it at first, and then it rang again, and it was a friend of mine, and I asked him, and he was like, "Hey, did you hear about, the owner of 5G?" And I was like, "No, what happened?" And he said, "Man, he actually took his own life." And I was like, "No way." And it was really tough. Like, the kids could tell at the ball field, and we talked about it a little bit, but it was really hard on us. And I thought, maybe 5G wasn't going to be a thing anymore. And of course, I went to his wife and his daughters and consoled them and gave them our condolences and was just talking to her, and she was like, "Man, Jeff, he really loved you and really loved what you were doing, and I want you to make 5G as big as you can make it." And I was like, "Well, you know what? I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it for him." And that's one of the things that now I'm going to start bringing awareness to, because now when you start seeing us at the ball field, we're going to have the mental health awareness ribbon on our sleeve, and it's going to say mental health awareness on it, and just try to bring awareness to it. I know that's the thing that hinders a lot of people, like a lot of youth, and if us just being out there on the ball field and just demonstrating how the kids have fun and play the game. And if that helps just one person, overcome those thoughts or anything, then it's worth it. So
100%, man.
And that's the story of 5G Prime. Like we're a family. Like we all love each other. We're growing faster and faster and faster than we've ever have. And this was in 2022, so not too long ago, just a few years ago, and we went from 2 teams to now we got 16 teams.
My goodness.
And we got 2 softball teams. So I'm really, really proud of the softball program that we got going on. And all these people hear that story. We have a coaches meeting where I talk about that in the meaning, and and they'll be glad to tell you what 5G means if you ever see them at the ball field or anything.
And I tell you what, and I remember when that happened, and it was tragic definitely for this area, and we've had our share of tragedies. We have, no doubt about it. And it's the whole travel ball community. It's a tight, especially in the upstate, it's very tight knit. And and when you see something like that, especially the 5 girls, it was horrible. But the thing is, you've definitely taken that from something tragic and turned it into something just fantastic. Now, when I walked in here tonight, I told you, this is the first time I've been here, and I was blown away. And the fact that you're a big part of this, started this whole thing and kept this thing going, and it's continued to grow. And I know Clay Jones is one of the owners here, and he's done a good job too. But it's just tremendous especially here in the Spartanburg area. There's a lot of things going on. You got the new Spartanburgers minor league team that's gonna. I think they start this year actually. That's going to be something really good. That's just going to help. It's going to help travel baseball and softball as well, fast pitch softball. And it's 2 softball teams. That's great too. It's just and we were talking about this before. You've done such a good job as far as starting, just going out, getting kids that maybe just played rec ball and getting these kids, identifying these kids, and I said it. Every time you guys came out, you got better and better and better and better. And not just like, that one team you said you guys hit the ground, and you did, but there's some really good ball players. But all your other teams, you can tell how they all play the same way. Mm-hmm. They play hard, and sometimes teams don't like that. Other teams, but you know what? It's about the fun. There's no doubt about it. We want these kids to have a blast. But it's also about developing these kids, and that's one thing. And I attest to you, Jeff, and there's a lot of people in Upstate do it, but you do it really well too. Is you have never ever asked about competition. You're all about competition. Right. You will take your licks with the young team, but you keep taking them, and they're getting better, and you're always asking to play the best. There's been many times. There's been a few times where I've called you when you were higher in AA, and we needed you to play triple or even a major team that might have came in the area. And put us against them. Yeah. And that right there, I think that's, as far as developing baseball, that's what it's about. Mm-hmm. So you've done a tremendous job with that. I know you can continue to do it. And the amount of teams that you have, you're one of the biggest organizations in the state. And I know you're going to continue to grow that too, both on the softball and the baseball side.
Yeah, that's the plan.
So, and I know you got some bigger aspirations too, but I'm going to let you talk. Like I said, we're going to make this a good conversation, and who knows where this is going to go, but we'll find out.
I appreciate the kind words, Todd, and so, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I've had some success in what
Absolutely.
I do, and that's what I kind of relay to my coaches. And I've been blessed by all means with some wonderful coaches that they feed into what we got going on. And that's why the teams do gradually get better, because we put in the work. Like we've got a lot of resources as far as fields in the area. I got some good connections. I'm also a head baseball coach for a middle school team. So I know what it takes, and that's kind of our philosophy. So when these kids start out young, our goal is to get them ready to make their school team. Because if they're playing travel ball, it's fun and everything, but they want to do it because they got aspirations of growing. Yep. All of them want to be Major League Baseball players. We get that. But in order to do that, you got to make your school team first. Then you got to make your varsity team, and then hopefully you can make college or get drafted and all that stuff. Yep. And so that's the steps I'm trying to take. Yep. Getting these kids ready for middle school ball, like I have tryouts just like every other middle school coach does, and what I'm looking for is what I teach these kids. So whenever they get trained by these coaches, and I'll randomly show up to some of these practices, and not micromanaging, but we have a way that we do practices.
Right. The 5G way.
That's right. That's right. And again, these coaches I got, they're all in, kind of like Dabo.
There you go.
They're all in. They love what we do, and that's why most people stay. That's why we keep on growing. Now, we can't make everybody happy. I get that. But if I can make the majority of people happy, then I'm doing something right.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, because if you were keeping everybody happy, you're doing something wrong.
Right, that's right.
Because, bottom line, there's some players that maybe baseball's not their sport,
Right.
and they find out at an early age or this and that. But we're talking about before, too, but you just never know what you might have. There's kids that are late bloomers. You might have a kid right now that's 9 or 10 years old, but you see something, and a kid loves the game, and he keeps playing, and he's in an organization like 5G Prime, and he keeps growing, and he keeps going out there, and he keeps getting better and better. And the next thing you know, that's exactly what happens. It's a great thing. And let me, you brought up middle school as a middle school head baseball coach. That's that 13U year in travel ball when they're getting ready. Because it's first of all in the fall when they go to the big field. If you don't talk about the transition as far as they start swinging the big boy bat and start swinging the drop 3 here in South Carolina, BB Corps, and how important it is in the fall to be swinging that, because you don't want the first time they pick up a bat to be a tryout. So,
yeah, and that's what I tell all of my kids is, you don't want to skip out on that 13U fall season, because that's where you get acclimated. It's a big jump.
Oh, yeah.
I've always advocated, I wish we would kind of go to what was it, 55 or
5480?
Yeah, 5480.
Yeah.
And so my team, we would go and we would play in East Cobb and Perfect Games, and in Georgia and Florida, and they would have those.
Right.
And it would kind of be a shell shock to us, because we're used to somebody throwing it from 60 feet.
Yeah,
and they're
54.
They're 54, throwing it a little bit harder, and so you get out. But it is a big jump.
Yeah.
And that's why that fall year is very crucial. And even like swinging the bat in here, coming in here, swinging that drop 3 bat, getting used to it. Defense is big at that age too. Because and we get it. 13 is a big year in kids. Growing. Some might hit that puberty and they might be bigger and stronger, but then you got some that really hadn't hit it yet, and they can't hit it out of the infield. And so. That level, and I tell a lot, like this happened to my son. He'll probably shoot me for saying this, but I coached him, but he was really small. Like he looked like a 10-year-old out there when he was 13, and he didn't really hit a growth spurt till later.
Yeah.
But he would always make it to his last cut for middle school, and he didn't make it. And it broke his heart. Like he gave up. Like he quit. It broke my heart when he gave up. Yeah. And now he's a junior at Clemson, and he helps me coach. Like he kind of.
Oh yeah, we've seen him. He
loves
the game.
He's all about it.
And that's good. He stayed with it. He might not be in the game, but he stayed around it. And who knows what he'll probably. Like you said, he's coaching now.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of things I know that and I know, and as a middle school coach, probably the toughest thing you've ever got to do is to cut a kid.
Right.
I help out at local high school, and that's the worst thing to do, to a kid walk in there. And I'm glad I'm not a head coach, so I don't have to worry about doing it. But I have to witness it, and I know it's tough. So that right there, because you just don't know. But those kids, they find a way,
right?
And they keep coming back until they get
and that's what I tell them. Like for us, we can only keep 14 players on our middle school team, but I had 50 something come to try out.
Wow. Wow, that speaks to the program.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah. That's the school. And so what I tell them is, look. I can only keep 14 kids. Most people here, if you made it this far, you want to play. Like you really want to play, so stay with it. Like I do have a program, where you can get involved, and that's like why I have multiple teams in each age, and we have multiple levels.
Right.
And that's what I tell some of our players too. Like we might have a high-end team, but there's a kid that's kind of struggling, and he's not being successful on that team.
Sure.
but if you ask them, hey, would you mind coming down to this other team and just playing where you would have more success? Sometimes they, they kind of get butthurt and they're like, oh, I'm getting demoted, but that's not the case.
Right.
Like I want everybody to succeed in this program and get better. And so if you're playing at a high level against competition where you're just not there yet, then we got an opportunity on this team where you can maybe excel a little bit better.
And, get their confidence up, which is great. And you bring up a great point, because the fact that you do have multiple teams in age groups, because you can actually develop those kids. And maybe one weekend, hey, maybe you have one of the kids that's your lower team or middle team like that, and you need to bring them up and, hey, let's take a look at him and see what he does and see how he acts with the kids, and there's a good chemistry with that, and as long as he doesn't feel like he's intimidated and that's what you find out. So it's just, it's just how it is. And I think what we're doing, and first of all, I want to thank you, because you've been a big proponent of us with our move to Perfect Game.
Right.
We really do, and I think one of the biggest things that I like about it, and I know you'll like about it as a true baseball guy too, is the pitch count. I think the pitch count's going to help us save some of these young kids' arms, and it's going to make people develop more pitching, which is a good thing. But the competition, somebody like yourself that is building for the bigger picture for these kids, I think the competition, if we can bring them in from Charlotte, if we can bring them from East Cobb and stuff to that effect, we're right in the middle, and get some. Double A's never go. It's always going to be there. We know that, but we're going to have those tournaments. But we're excited about getting some elite teams to come in and play our really good teams. And I've always said this. I'm from Florida originally, and Florida baseball was all about it, and I still am. But per capita, I think this state rivals any state in the country as far as their high-end talent. And the upstate especially, when we have teams that come in from North Carolina or Georgia that might be AAA or major teams, and if we have an open tournament and you've played against them and you've beat them as AA teams, so we can see the classing as far as, I'm not saying there's some really great teams in Georgia, there's some great teams in North Carolina, but I think our level of competition, we're very careful. We're like, okay, we're going to make sure these guys are ready, but your organization every time seems to step up to the plate as far as when you have to play these guys, and like, well, or maybe we should have more major teams or classify them as majors, because they're beating these major teams from other places. And again, and I like to brag about this state, especially the upstate, this area, because I think guys like yourself and other really good coaches here in the upstate have done a good job of developing those kids, true baseball coaches. So that's something that we look forward to continuing. And I know Perfect Game, we're going to bring the Diamond Cast. You're familiar with the Diamond Cast, which is really, it's going to help us with our showcase high school. It's going to be at all that, but we're going to introduce it to the youth as well. Not 8U, but from 9U up in tournaments. So it's a little bit to it. So but we're excited about that. And again, we really appreciate you being a big proponent of Perfect Game in this area. So
I'm a big advocate. Like once I knew that was going to be a thing, because I would take my teams down and we would go and we'd play at East Cobb and we would be like, oh, we're playing a majors team, and sometimes we drum roll that majors team. We're like, hey, but now don't get me wrong, there is some elite talent down there.
Definitely is.
And we've had our teeth kicked in too, but that's what you want. That competition's how you get better. And I'm glad you brought that up about this area being saturated with some good talent, because we really got some great talent.
We do.
And that's something that and I might get frowned upon on this by some other organizations, but I want to start national teams for our area. So you'd be a part of 5G Prime, but you can still play with your travel ball team, during the week and everything. But let's get the best of the best in our area and create a team. We'll be called 5G Prime, but we're representing, the upstate of South Carolina, and let's go play these majors teams. Let's go to East Cobb. Let's go to Florida. Let's go maybe Texas or all these places and play in these big-time tournaments and say, hey, this is who we are. These kids that can perform at that level get an opportunity. And that's how you get better. You got some organizations that they're quoting and saying, hey, well, I'll get you nationally known. You're going to get scouted, and you're only 13 years old. Like, what 13U scout or college scout or pro scout is looking at a 13-year-old kid?
I can attest, unless you're Bryce Harper,
Nobody.
They're not coming until you're 15 or 16 at best.
Right.
Usually, maybe if their guy's a phenom as a high school sophomore or whatever, and they're coming to that, but you nailed it on the head, and I'm glad you said that because, and like you said, we know every kid's got a dream. Major League Baseball player, and it happens, people. I mean, I'm going to bring up a local guy that was a Tedioso that played over here at Malden.
Yeah.
Went to Clemson. Didn't have a great career at Clemson, but just a baller. Signed as a free agent. And the kid's a big leaguer now. Got called up in the end of September with the Angels last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know we kind of went off the path a little bit there, but you're right. I mean, those are the type of kids that, and what I really like about that idea is you're going to keep it pretty much from the upstate. Your pool's the upstate.
Right.
Your pool's not, Atlanta, flying kids in from all over the place to put a roster together. You're creating something that's going to have chemistry as a team.
Right.
Because a lot of times when these super elite national teams or whatever, these kids half the time they don't know. I mean, they've got their core players. Don't get me wrong, I understand that. But those 4 or 5, you got your POs flying in from this state.
Right.
Guys coming in this week, and half the time I don't know how the coaches know their names.
Well, and then they don't practice.
Yeah, that's right. They don't practice.
You're telling me like you're spending all this money to be a part of a national program, but you don't practice. But hey, I'm getting a good coach. Yeah. Well, it don't matter if you got a good coach or not. How is he coaching you? Yeah. When you're just doing a game. Yeah. And then too, these teams will have 17 kids on the roster, and you might go and you're paying all this money, and you might get 4 at bats the whole weekend.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And you're paying all this money to be nationally known. Right. So I don't think that's a good formula. You're lining pockets for these other people that's doing that, and that's why they're doing it. And what my plan is, like I have a 15U team. That's the oldest team I got now. But once they start getting older, I'm going to be an advocate of messaging these college coaches or trying to do some scouting days in the area where we can pull these college coaches in. Hopefully I get lucky and get a big time like Clemson or South Carolina or, just spread the word out. And I'm going to be advocate for these kids to get known. I want to push for that. And I'm not going to charge them an arm and a leg to do it. We're a fraction of the price with this idea that I'm doing. I know I'm going to start out with, 8U, 9U and just see what I can do. See if I get any traction.
Build a model.
Build a model. I hand pick them. I pick the coaches.
Right.
It's not, hey, well, this team's part of 5G, then it's going to be all of them. No, that's not the case. I want to get the best of the best in our area. And, hey, let's get 4 or 5 tournaments, during the summer or spring, and let's go play higher competition. Yeah. You guys can still, be on your other teams, practice with your other teams. We'll practice some. I'm not trying to pull kids from other teams because we got to play somebody.
Yeah, no doubt. So it just gives some of the better kids from those teams an opportunity to go and play at a higher level. So, and while they still get to have fun and develop on the regular team, but you got your select weekends where, hey, I'm playing my national team this weekend. Yeah. And a lot of them still, I know those national teams, those kids still they play on their national teams and this and that, but and we know. I know as a tournament director how expensive it is for travel baseball. Yeah. It's not cheap, and it has it just continues to elevate cost of baseball. All that stuff has cost of fields and it has a lot to do with it. But anything we can do to try to keep the cost down, but still get that elite talent. Right. And here's the beautiful thing about that: when you do something like that, and you do have a stud player, an absolute somebody that's going to come out, because nowadays, especially, and you kind of take us that direction. I didn't even look at that. That's where I was going to go. But you brought up college recruiting. It's changed. Yeah. Ever since COVID now, these guys really don't. The recruiters, their thing is, COVID's like, send us videos. Just send me a video. I can't come out. I don't have the budget to go out there and fly. I don't have they have the recruiters, but it's a lot easier. I was speaking to a local college coach, and he said, Todd, he goes, I get 40 or 50 videos a week from kids. So a lot of these kids have had to self-recruit, but if anything that you add as a travel ball coach or a high school, middle school coach is just you see these kids more than anybody. Right, yeah. You see them on the weekends, you see them in here practicing to that effect. You know how that kid, what's his demeanor. Because you're the guy they're going to come to and say, hey, how does he get along with the rest of the kids? Right. Is he a good teammate? And that's so big. when you talk to these college coaches, you might have two kids that are neck and neck. Well, I'm checking the social media to see how this kid is.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with, all right, I'm going with this kid. It's a little bit better. He's got better coaching and on this end, but he's also a better person. So there's so many things. I think I really like that idea with make a local national team basically is what you're building.
Yeah, we're going to see it. We're going to put it out there. Like I'm going to start having some tryout flyers and see if we can get some traction with it. But I'm really pushing for it because, I might get, like I said, frowned upon for saying this, but a lot of these organizations are charging so much and lining their pockets for this. And also what they do is they'll charge little Johnny all this money, but hey, I really want Jeff, who's a stud, and so I'm going to offer him free. Like he's got a free ride, because little Johnny's paying all this money.
Right.
I don't think that's the right way of going about doing it. I mean, if people want to pay that money, that's fine. Be a part of that organization, do whatever. But that's not what my vision is for what I'm trying to do here.
Right.
And if it works, it works. If not, I'm still going to do this. And that's another thing about why I do this. Like a lot of these organizations that start up, it's because the guy that runs it, he's got kids on the team, and that's fine. Like I mean, that's great. But when they quit playing, is that organization still going to be around?
Right.
Are they still going to do that?
Right.
Well, my son ain't playing. Like
you don't have a dog in the fight.
I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm doing this for these kids because there's nothing like, molding these kids and being a big part of their life and, teaching them this wonderful game of softball or baseball. I mean, it's a beautiful game. It's a humble game. And it just builds character. Like my life growing up, my dad had me in baseball, and he passed away when I was young, like 14 years old. Wow. And I could either go a negative route, or he always wanted me to play baseball. So I stuck the baseball route, and it molded me to kind of be who I am today. And I've dabbled in coaching basketball and teaching kids and all this stuff. So I love it. Right. And you can see the impact you have in these kids by what you do. It's like, they got a father figure, but you're probably the next one in line because you're their coach.
Well, you're the first guy. You're exactly right. I mean, a lot of times they're going to confide in you because that's and I think that's what makes it all worthwhile. I mean, and you see kids, as they do progress, as they get older, and you see them if they get to the next level. I mean, I had a kid today call me that played at Eastside with us, and he's a freshman this year, and he's playing JUCO ball down in Florida, and he loves it, and he's getting a good opportunity down there, and he found out today that he's going to be in their starting rotation. And he's just one of those kids that just kept grinding and and not a big kid, but lefty pitcher, so that's a good plus for him. But those are the type of calls you like to get. He didn't have to call and tell me that, and I'm not tooting my horn at all, but you develop these relationships with these kids and their parents, and they look up to you. They're gonna trust you to do the right thing, and so I mean I think it's just tremendous. I mean, and as a tournament director, every week I'm out there and I watch the teams and I watch everything that's going on, and you can see things that are out there. People might be out there for the right thing, but then you see the teams that are just they're cohesive. They don't get on each other, and that's the fun part of it. I mean, is just watching good baseball. And I know there's things here. I mean, it gets heated.
Oh yeah.
I've had to call you a couple times, haven't I?
Oh yeah.
But I mean, but that's what I like. I mean, if you're not doing that, then you don't have the passion for the game.
Yeah.
And guys like yourself that put everything into it, and going that way. Let me ask you this: what are your core values? What are you looking for when you're evaluating young kids? I mean, and what's the main thing that you want to get?
Yeah, well, I mean, attitude is a part of it, and I've done this before too. Like I'll see a kid that's had a bad attitude, and I will try, to see if we can repair that, or be some kind of authority figure where that can change, and have an impact, especially with the younger kids. But work ethic is probably the main thing in being a good baseball player. I mean, you don't have to be the most talented to be good. I remember growing up, hopefully I'm not showing my age, but
I got you. I guarantee you, I got you.
Like Mark Lemke, you remember him? Second base for the Braves.
Yeah.
You know, you look at if he walked up to you in the mall, you'd be like, who the heck's this guy? You know, he's a Major League Baseball player.
Yeah.
But he grinded. Like he would make the routine plays. He would go backside with runners in scoring position or something like that. So he just knew the game and was a student of the game.
Yes.
And that's another thing that I look for is students of the game. Like I never stop learning. Like I'm always watching games and picking up on the philosophy of the coach and other strategies and things like that. And that's how you become a better ball player. Like you can be God-given best talent in the world, but if you don't put in the work and be a student of the game, you're not going to go out there and hit a 90-something mile an hour fastball. It just ain't going to happen.
Yeah, baseball IQ, man.
Right,
That's
exactly.
a big deal. And you're right. I always tell kids, I mean, it's what you're doing when nobody's looking.
Right. That's it.
I mean, we're here at this beautiful facility and kids are working out, but someone's going to go home and get in the garage and put a little soft toss machine and continue to do it.
Right.
I mean, and that's a lot of the kids. You talked about Mark Lemke. You talk about guys that are undersized, Pedroia. I mean, those type of guys, they've had to play with chips on their shoulder their whole life, right? So, I mean, but there's something behind them that drives them to do it. So, I mean, that right there, I mean, definitely. I mean, when we talk about core values, I mean, you nailed on the head work ethic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and they got to want it.
They got it.
They got to want it.
Yeah.
Baseball is, I feel like and softball are one of the toughest sports you can play.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can get a freak athlete. Like, let's just Zion Williamson, for instance, because he's from this area.
Yeah.
Freak athlete.
Oh, yeah.
You could probably put him on the football field, and he might do all right as a defensive end or something like that. He's fast, he's big, or whatever. But I guarantee you, if Zion Williamson didn't work at baseball and I put him in the batter's box and I throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, he's probably not going to hit that fastball.
No.
So that's where the game is very humble. Like it gets harder and harder and harder and harder as you get older, and you got to be able to handle that. So that's another thing that we look for. You got to handle failure because you're gonna fail more times than you're going to succeed in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they play 162 games in the MLB, but they play 30-something preseason games just to get ready for it. And you're a Hall of Famer if you get 3 hits out of 10. Like for your prolonged career. So I mean, this game is humbling as
tough.
It can be, and you got to handle it.
And you're right. I mean, if you think about it, it's the only sport really that very few of them have done it. I know Bob Horner did it.
Yeah.
Went right from college to the big leagues.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, even your high draft picks, I mean, they're 3-4 years in the minor leagues, scuffling, now it's changed. I'm not going to age myself, but I mean, they get to play at some really nice ballparks, even in the minor leagues.
Right.
I mean, you look at the Spartanburgers park that they're building over.
Yeah.
I would have loved to play at something like that. I'm 19 or 20 years old.
Yeah.
But the fact is that you talk about the most humbling sport, and what other sport can you fail 70% of the time? You're going to be out of that sport.
Right.
You're gone,
Exactly.
right? You're going to play something else. Baseball, like you said, you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's so funny that you brought up somebody like Zion, because I went and instantly, you talk about some of the greatest athletes that we've ever had, Bo Jackson. Now, Bo Jackson was a freak. I mean, there's guys that have did it. You had Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, Brian Jordan, I think, also, that were able to play two-way sports at the highest level on both. And it's a shame what happened to Bo, that he wouldn't have gotten hurt to see what he could have done.
Probably best ever.
He could have been, no doubt about it. You've heard those stories too.
Oh yeah.
But Michael Jordan decides, I'm going to play baseball.
Yeah.
And we look at it. Now, I'll give him credit.
Yeah.
He got better, but that was at our time, he's the greatest athlete ever.
Oh yeah,
and
by far.
He looked like a fool in here, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'll give Tim Tebow a little bit of credit too. He got better too, but it's just, it doesn't happen. I mean, if you're not this sport, I've always said you can put a baseball player in any sport and he can look like he knows what he's doing. Maybe hockey, maybe not hockey, but unless he's from up north.
Right.
But baseball players are different. They're wound different. You're right about you've got to accept failure. The failure in baseball is part of the development.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. But I mean, that to me is the foundation for making.
Like even winning and losing, like my 9U team that we have, they're one of the best around.
They're legit.
and they were undefeated, going into like the next to the last tournament, and they played in a game in a championship, and it was raining in and out, and and it was just miserable, and there were some questions about the score and everything.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and they actually ended up losing, and I thought that they would, like, the coach would be like all upset and everything, and I called him and I said, man, sorry about that, he said, man, I think it's great. And I said, why? He said, because we finally, got that taste. Like, we know how it is to lose, and then we're going to be better after the fact. Yeah. So that's, you don't have to win every single game. Like, it's awesome to be the win. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to win every time I'm out there. Yeah. But when you lose, you got to be able to handle that too. Yep. And that builds character in these kids. And that's like testament to my coach. Sure. He was all about that. And you'll see, like, if you guys ever get a chance to watch that team, I mean, they're incredible.
I think our man back here, doesn't his son
play
on that team?
Hey, shout out
I'll get a shout out.
Blanton.
Absolutely. I've got to give him a big shout out back here. He's got this set up here, and he does a tremendous job. At Perfect Game, when we went over to Perfect Game, we changed our Facebook page to Perfect Game SEC. Right. Well, Meta, Facebook, said it was a trademark infringement, so they pulled our Facebook page down, and it's still down. They gave everybody, they gave Charlotte back, they gave Myrtle Beach, they gave all theirs back, and hopefully we'll get ours back. But our man Dave here created a Facebook page for Perfect Game in Upstate, and he has helped us tremendously. So big shout out to him. And like I said, if you guys are here, I'm going to take a picture of Dave's setup. I'm going to make sure it gets posted. This is going to be some high-end production. So, Dave, we appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, ECB Sports, right?
That's right. It's
ECB Sports.
ECB Sports, yeah. And Dave, you'll see him out. He does. I first noticed him out there video and broadcasting a lot of the 9U games out there too. So, but in fact, he did that game. I remember watching that game, and I was like, oh my gosh. We thought it was over, and then you went back and forth, but. You brought up a good point. That one loss probably did more for that team than the 30 wins they had in the fall.
Exactly.
So, I mean, but that team right there is definitely a team that's going to be exciting to watch. And that's a team that's going to stay together. If kids move out of the area, maybe, you might lose here and there, but you'll replace. But, I mean, that type of thing, I think more than anything, I've been doing this for, it's going on 20 years now. And when I first started, now these kids have their own kids. They're 8 or 9 years old. Yeah. But you see a team like that stay together, and by when it's all over, you're going to have freaking 8 or 9 of those kids playing college baseball.
That's the goal.
So, I mean, that is, if you ask me, that's what travel baseball needs to do. That's what needs to get to that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, everybody thinks, the grass is greener on the other side sometimes. Like, if little Johnny's not playing shortstop and batting third, then let's go over and let's start our own new team and do that. And me being this and doing this for so long, even though we've been doing 5G Prime for a couple of years, like, I see people wanting to come back. Yep. They're like, you know what, we tried that, it didn't work out, Jeff. What you got going on is far better, and we appreciate it now. But then some, I mean, hey, like I said, I can't make everybody happy. If that's the route you want to go, as long as you do it right, the right way for these kids, that's what it's about. Is these kids are having a good time. 2% or 3% of kids make it to the pros out of college, and so there's a slim chance, or a pretty good chance they're not going to. But and I go back to my son, even though I spent a lot of money and I coached him, I took him to Cooperstown, like we did all that stuff. And he stopped after middle school ball. I wouldn't take those days back for nothing.
Yeah, those experiences you can't. Right. I know Cooperstown's just a tremendous. And we say it all the time. I mean, every kid deserves to go to Cooperstown. Right. I mean, it's great. We know how much the parents love it. I mean, the kids too. But it's just I always rep Cooperstown. If you got a chance to go to Cooperstown, you got to go.
Right.
You have to.
Yeah, and I was just piggybacking on. A lot of these people say I spent all this money and my kid didn't make it and all this stuff, but look at all the, like, nothing pleased me more than to watch my son out there on the ball field playing a game that I love. And seeing other kids play it and they love it, or you're working with a kid that's 0 for 20 and you've done so much work, and then finally he gets a hit and he's over there at first base doing this and grinning. Like, I mean, that's what it's about, and that's why I do this, and that's what I want these parents to understand too is, let them be kids too. I know you want them to be the greatest, and I get that. But sometimes, sit back and look at, well, do they enjoy what they're doing?
Yep.
And, enjoy the moment, enjoy what we're out here doing. And you can't go on the weekend somewhere and spend, $20-$30 for the entire weekend, be out there in the ball field. Watching the game for hours and hours.
Yeah.
You go to a movie theater, you spend that for 2 hours.
And then if you got real little ones and a babysitter nowadays, $15-$20 an hour.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, and
that's a good plug. I like that.
Yeah, and that's what I like. You guys, I mean, I know you get grief about having gate fees and stuff like that, and but you guys do a great job. You got all these ballparks that you gotta get involved with, and then you got to get umpires, and we know that's hard.
It's tough, and it's as we grow, it gets bigger, and you get a lot of them that are getting older. And you know how it is. I mean, we get out in these dog days of summer in August when it's 95, 60.
Yeah.
They don't want to. It's not that they don't want to be out there. They can't do 6 games.
Right.
So getting some high school, getting some of these college kids, trying to get a little bit younger. Got to be a little careful. Some of those kids won't go out Friday night and they come back Saturday morning.
Yeah.
But no, you're right.
And they got to deal with the parents, and they got to I'm starting to look at it now. I was like, look, I wouldn't want to deal with me as a coach, I mean, but I got that passion, and I understand, but it takes a lot, to put these things together and organize it, and you got game time requests. I mean, I know along with all these teams, I'm constantly texting Chris and saying, hey man, I'm sorry, I got another one. We don't want to play at 7 o'clock in the morning. Can we get a later game time? And so you guys do a great job and all of that, and that's why I've always been an advocate for you. Whenever I would see these keyboard warriors bashing you on social media, I got you back, because I know what all that goes into it, and how difficult it is, and mainly you guys are doing it. I mean, it's a business, but you guys are doing it for these kids too.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen,
sport.
I always say I got the best job in the world. I do.
Yeah.
If I didn't have bills, I would do it for free.
Right.
But I love being at the ballpark, and like you said, I mean it. And I get it. I get it from a parent's point. I mean, they're spending, like I said, we know, they got to pay for the teams, they got to pay for field time, and all that, and then they come in here and they got to pay a gate fee, and there's expenses. You got umpire expenses, you got field costs, you got baseball costs, I mean, there's just tons of stuff that's, and you've seen the behind the scenes, so you understand.
Right.
But again, I mean, I think it goes back to what you said. I mean, you would not give up. They'll look back on these days, and they're gonna remember a moment, a game, a tournament, or something with their man. I'd pay $1 million to have that same feeling again. And,
I mean, I look back at the kids I've coached. Like I got one that did get drafted. Like he's drafted by the Reds. Went to Clemson. I got one when I was just starting out coaching that ended up he was close to being in the starting rotation for the San Francisco Giants, but Madison Bumgarner beat him out of it.
North Carolina boy.
Yep. And so, but then I got one that got drafted in the NBA.
Wow.
Got one that got drafted in the NBA. And then I got one that was valedictorian of his high school. Yep. Then I got some now that, like with my son, they're college, Division I college,
Sure.
And then I got some that are playing Division I baseball, So it's all about the story. And how I mold these kids, and have a big influence in their lives, because you're a big part of their lives, whether you believe it or not.
Oh, no doubt.
And like I had great coaches when I was growing up, and like they would chew my butt out, if I made something up. And that's how I started out coaching, and I've evolved, and building these kids to just have great character, and that's why I do what I do. That's the reason.
You do a tremendous job, and like I said, I know you as a organizational leader, the guy that starts your organization, and everybody comes. I mean, I know you have to wear every hat there is.
There's a lot.
I mean, and I know parents. I mean, your parents. We never have issues out of the parents. You guys are great. I mean, and that's a tribute. And I know it. I mean, when you guys play at a high level with your teams, a lot of your teams. I mean, it gets intense.
Yeah,
I mean,
very
it's
intense. Yep.
There's been times out there with parents, boy, and I totally understand it. I mean, I get it. I mean, and that's not going to change. And to some point, we don't want that to change because they care at that point. As long as there's no haymakers being thrown. There's been a few times.
Oh yeah, I've been tempted too. It's hard to put held back, or when they protest and stuff. But.
Yeah, no, hey, and I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Perfect game. That's one of the great things. There's really not a lot. I mean, and I'll give Chris credit. He always says our goal is to get kids outside playing baseball.
Yeah.
we understand in the old sanctioning body and a lot of the other sanctioning bodies that, there's forfeitable offenses. I mean, now with Perfect Game, you set your roster what it is on Monday. That's what you show up with if you play. Mm-hmm. If a kid goes up and he's not on that roster, he's just removed. He's taken away. Yep. You're not going to penalize the rest of the team. Pitching, same thing. The pitching, if they go over the pitch count, because TrackMan, or not TrackMan, but Diamond Cast is keeping all that stuff. Right. But if he goes 1 or 2 over, just remove the kid, Yep. So, I mean, there's a few things that could be protestable for the most part, but, I mean, there's nothing that's going to stop kids from playing baseball. Yeah. So I think that's great. I mean, and, there's a lot of good things about the Perfect Game model that I like. And,
well, I mean, and that's good about that kind of the open roster.
The open roster's good,
and that's what kind of like goes back to what I was trying to do with that national thing. So that's why I can do it.
Yep.
Because you can still play with your team, on these other weekends. Yeah. But, hey, I want to play with 5G Prime National this weekend in East Cobb. I got an open roster. I'll just add you. You accept it. That's it.
Good to go.
You're playing.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a good, too. You brought up another good point. You could be on multiple rosters. Yeah. You know how before you couldn't be – you especially with your organization like you got 3 or 4 in an age group. Hey man, if I want to take that kid on that middle team and put him up there, just put him on there. I don't gotta drop, remove, add, drop, remove, add. You just add them. So there's a lot of pluses about it, and I'm excited about it. And I'll say, I mean, I told you I was in training this week. Got to go back next week in Atlanta. The support we've had has been unbelievable. I mean, they truly, their big slogan now is believe in baseball.
Okay.
And trust me, they believe in baseball. That's what they talk about. They're getting into softball now too, so we'll see. They're going to see if they can take that model into the softball side. We'll see what happens there. So we're working that too. But.
Yeah, I'm trying to expand that. So it started out, I got 2 teams now.
Hey, if you do, you take the model you did with baseball, I guarantee you we'll be in here a year from now. You're going to have 10 softball teams.
Yeah, that's the goal.
I guarantee you that.
That's the goal.
So it's been tremendous, and like I said, I mean. This type, I get excited. I mean, I walk in there and I see this. It's on a Friday night, and it's 8 o'clock, right? And we got kids in here swinging the bat and
that's
getting better.
2 of my teams right there. Yep.
So I mean, it's been tremendous. But man, I totally appreciate everything you do for baseball in the Upstate. And don't move, don't go anywhere. You got to stay here, and I want to see how this national thing, because I really think that's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah,
I think that's something that you're a good guy to do it, and start like I said. I think hey, let's start 8 and 9 or whatever, and try to see if we can build that model, get some traction, and see how it works. And the thing it seems like the travel baseball. There's different. Gosh, it's different than what it was 5 years ago. And then 5 years ago was different than it was. I mean, it's just you get to different things. One thing I wanted to bring up to you, and I wanted to ask your opinion on this. This is something, and this is another Perfect Game thing. Is the 12U, and I'll explain why we do it. Because there's no drop 5 allowed in Perfect Game, and a lot of it has to do with these elite 12-year-old kids. Have you gotten pushback from your 12U teams about not able to swing a drop 5 bat? And
not yet. Not yet. But I can see it happening.
Yes.
But you look at some of these 12U kids, and they're bigger than I am.
Yeah, I know. It's insane.
And then you're only, what's the distance?
They're 50 feet away.
50 feet away.
They're 50 feet away.
And some of these kids may be throwing it close to 70-something miles an hour. And then you that close, and you hit that with that bat.
Yeah.
There could be some.
And there's been a ton of lawsuits already.
Right.
And that's kind of where they went from. But the reason why, and I knew kind of why, but I guess at the drop 5 level, the weight, the ratio to the bat length, the drop 5 is way more hot than the drop 8. I mean, they can swing the drop 8s and stuff. And that's been the biggest thing for people saying, well, drop 8's going to be more dangerous because it's lighter. No, because you lose power at a certain part of that.
Yeah.
And that drop 5 is just like the perfect weapon almost.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, to give you an example, we went down to Jackie Robinson training facility and played in a tournament this Labor Day.
Right.
And they allowed you to play, because some of those teams were they didn't start their season till the next, it was next month or something. And so they allowed us to kind of play down, and there were some of these kids swinging, drop 5 bats.
Right.
And And my kids were like, well, we've been swinging drop threes. Should we swing it? And I was like, no, at first. But we were just trying to compete.
Sure.
And so we had some, and we started swinging them, and they were knocking the piss out of it. And I might want to cut that, dude. But,
That's okay, man. That's good. Keep it.
They were knocking the crap out of it, and everybody was whining and complaining, because my kids are big kids, and and it's still
it's
like
equal.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, well, you guys are swinging it. Why can't we swing it? And so, but I can see where it is a problem.
Yeah, the 12. Yeah. Now the good thing is they can swing it at 13. I mean, they can they can transition. Maybe before they get into the drop three, I think.
And I'm okay with that because you got kids
and they can swing at 11.
Yeah,
which is good,
but then you look at middle school. Middle school, they're 13, but they can't swing.
They can't.
They're swinging drop
three.
three.
No doubt.
And so it. I wish people would get on the same page a little bit, but I get it,
And that was the one thing, and then looking at it and seeing, okay, this happened here. This kid almost got decapitated because of line drive. Right. Here's a 12-year-old hitting a ball with a freaking 87 exit velocity, and the kid's 50 feet away.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
kill somebody.
We got kids here that can do that.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I get it. And that's the one thing I've seen with Perfect Game over the last, since we announced in November. There's a lot of science in the back and everything they put into and all their thought and everything like that. But it's going to be good. We're gonna have our growing pains, I'm sure. I mean, but as far as learning everything that we need to learn, whether it's the stats and all that stuff. I've got to hire a ton of people. So anybody that wants to run the Diamondcast, Dave, you want to run Diamondcast for me on the weekend, buddy? We're paying, baby. We're paying. We're paying.
I'm excited, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
I am too, man.
I'm ready to dive in, and like I said, with some of my more competitive teams, we wanted to venture out and try to do that. And we're still going to do that. Like I'm taking my team to the IMG Academy in Florida.
Oh man, there you go.
We're going to do that.
See that right there? I'm going to where the best is, right?
Yep.
I mean,
and that's what we're going to do. But I want to see, with having this Perfect Game here, like what competition we can bring to the area, because I want to see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's and that's the thing. I think the Spartanburg, Greenville, the whole upstate, we're kind of a destination city, area now. There's a lot of things. This area's grown so much. I mean, with the BMW bringing a lot, and then building another plant in Woodruff, then there's just going to be more and more kids, coming to this area.
And we, what I like about my program too is like we would go to these places, and like we went to Cal Ripken one time, and we played a team from Canada, and like just great sportsmanship, and it was when we actually had a kid that was on our team that got diagnosed with cancer, and it was a big outpour. I mean, that was great. Like the support from the baseball family, Upstate family. I mean, hands down. And now the kid's in remission, and he's playing again.
That's awesome.
But anyway, like that team was like, hey man, we want to come play where you guys are from. And so we gave them information, and I don't know if they're going to be in any tournaments, but a lot of times we go somewhere and we sometimes have that much of an influence that people want to come play. Like we played in Jackie Robinson, we played a team from Puerto Rico in the championship game, and they're like, man, how many teams you got? And I told them, it's like, oh, dude, we want to come to where you're at and play your teams. And I was like, well, you got to let us come to Puerto Rico and play y'all too. You got to pay for it. We'll do it.
But you're ambassadors for the game, man, and that's what helps us.
So,
I mean, that type of stuff you talk about the Canadian team. This is going back probably 6-7 years ago. We had the Ontario Blue Jays organization up in Canada, of course, that had older teams that came down 3 or 4 years in a row. They did like a Southern swing.
Right.
Now they're funded by Canada, but through the Blue Jays, right? Really good ball players. But they played our 15s and our 16s. They brought 5 teams every year. We're trying to rekindle that now. They still have that type of thing. And like for your 15U teams, how great would that be?
That'd be awesome.
That's the other thing that's going to be fantastic about the Perfect Game model is we're going to be playing at more colleges and more high schools and stuff like that. So get you guys on the complexes you should be playing on here in Upstate.
Right.
And that'll just help us get more as well. But I'm really excited about this year.
Me too.
And like I said, man, it's tremendous what you've been able to create. And I know you've been doing it for a long time, but just to watch the short amount of time where 5G started and to where they are now is it's pretty mind-blowing, man. That really is. And I attribute that to not just you, but your coaching staff.
That's
the guys you got working for you. So, man, I appreciate everything that you've done, brother. And we'll keep it rolling. So, but again, we thank everybody here in the Upstate, and we're looking forward to a great travel ball season this year with Perfect Game. And we'll be talking to you guys more. This is our first. And then this guy's a natural, Dave. He's natural, man. But no, we appreciate everybody, guys, and you guys have a fantastic weekend. And we'll see you at the ballpark.